In my opinion, having good lights when you're driving at night is absolutely imperative. So in this video, I'm going to give you the 8 things that I like to find in my lighting solution. And the idea of giving you these 8 things is helping you make a decision to get the right lights that are going to suit your budget and suit your requirements. All right, let's hook into it. Number 1. I like to have light out in my peripheral view, out to the sides of the vehicle. And the reason is, if there's an animal and if I can catch it in my peripheral view, then I can start to take evasive action as needed before I have an animal strike. An extra little tip for you is, if you do see an animal on the road in front of you, oftentimes what I find works is irregular beeps on the horn will often scare the animal away and it'll get off the road for you. The second thing I look for is I like lights that can give me a good amount of distance but flexibility. So these lights here, they can throw beyond 2 kilometers. That's a massive distance, but oftentimes you can't use that distance because if you have an oncoming vehicle, you have to dip your lights at 2 kilometers, and that's way too long a time to be running on low beam. So what I do with these lights is I use their high-low function. I'll have the driving lights set on low beam, and then I've got my light bar up the top here which reaches out to about 1 kilometre. That means when I have a vehicle coming towards me, I can dip from high beam to low beam when that vehicle's only about 1 kilometre away. Then when I get out there in the country roads and there's very little traffic on the roads, these go to full high beam, that goes on, and I have daylight around me. And in that environment, it's fantastic. The other interesting time I find having all of the light on is when I'm on country roads that are windy and so on, and I've got a lot of tree canopy around me. What I find is by having all the light on, I get a lot of reflection coming from the trees and the bush and the environment coming back down onto the trail around me, and that fills out that space. So it's a refracted light that gives me even more light on the terrain, but that light isn't coming back and affecting my eyes. The third thing I look for in my lights, as I said, I love that peripheral view, but from the peripheral view to the center of the light's view, I want a really nice even light graduation. So this is around about where that peripheral light finishes. Now from here, I can see the headrest of the car, so I can see where my head would be. So I do like having the light out here. As you can see, all the trees are lit up nicely. We've got, kangaroos would be seen, or wombats, whatever would be seen in here. But here's the other thing I really like. This light all up through here is nice and even. There's no strange light patterns going on. We've got an even light from there right through to this center part of the light beam. And I like the way that graduates through. It makes it nice and soft to my eyes when I'm driving. And the reason I like it to be like that is, 1, it allows me to see the detail in the terrain without having a shadow covering items like bumps or a rock or whatever it might be. And the second reason is, when I'm driving for a long time with the lights shining, it reduces the amount of eye strain. The fourth thing that I'm going to look for in my lights, I like the quality of the light to be correct. Now, to understand what I mean by that, it'd be great if you go and watch this video I did about light and how it works. But in short terms, there's a term called CRI, the Color Rendering Index, which refers to how the light is going to look. Why is it important? Well, it's going to allow you to see the colors in the terrain correctly. The greens are going to be green, the road surface is going to be brown, black, blue, whatever color it is, but it's going to look correct to the way your brain is going to interpret the actual road or surface that you're driving through. And the reason that's important is that it allows you to not only see the detail in the surface, but for your brain to interpret that information in a way that makes sense. I've driven under lighting that is quite cheap and of a budget nature, and oftentimes what you'll find is that the trees will look grey instead of green, and that messes with the way your brain thinks. Or the road surface will look really blown out and insipid and thin, if you will. And why that matters is you won't see the bumps and the corrugations and the finer details in the road surface. And the fifth thing that I look for in my lights, I like to have a cover over the lens where possible. And I like that cover to be a clear cover like these here. What I find is that if you run like a black cover, well, it means that you've got to remove that cover when you want to use the lights at night. And then you've got to store those covers in the vehicle with you. Well, I find that a pain in the neck. I like a cover that can live on the light. It's protecting the body of the light in all times, whether it be day or night, and it works when I need it to work. And a quick tip for you, I often take these off when I'm washing the vehicle. I can clean the inside of the cover and I can clean the light properly so that they stay in perfect working order. Point number 6, I like the mounting brackets to be really solid so that the light doesn't move and shake. But more importantly, I don't want the light to go out of adjustment, so I want a really good, secure locking off system for the lights. Point number 7. I want a light that has a warmer Kelvin. Now, to understand what Kelvin is, go and watch the video that I referenced in point number 4. But basically, Kelvin is going to be how warm the light looks or how blue or white intense the light looks. 6000 is going to be more intense or blue light as we call it. 4000 is going to be more warm as we refer to it. Myself personally, I like the warmer end of the range, so I really like driving under a 4000 Kelvin light like I have on the race car. The reason is it's a softer light coming back at me, so I get less eye strain, especially when I'm wearing my glasses at night. But you can get lights in a range of different Kelvins, so find a colour that suits you and what you like to drive under. Item number 8. I like a light that has a really nice height in the beam. So at the top of the beam, I want it to shine up the hill that I'm about to drive up. At the bottom of the beam, I want it to, as much as possible, shine down into the gully I'm about to drive into. So the height of the beam, I find, really helps me out there on the trails. Now, there's lots of different price points and qualities of lights out there in the market. There's a minefield of them. Some of the cheaper lights are actually not too bad. Some of the more expensive lights are not worth the money at all. So it's a minefield for us. Go and find a great set of lights that suit your budget and your needs. I'm Mad Matt. Stay safe on the trails.